These are the diaries of Link Tangent, space cartographer.
And I mean all of them. Well met, spacefarers. It is I, me, Tom Crowley, here to introduce you to this omnibus edition of the entire Link Tangent saga so Farga, catching you up with absolutely everything that's happened to everybody's favourite star mapper. And why do you need to catch up on all that? Because you're coming to see Link's first full feature-length adventure at London Podcast Festival 2025 in a couple of weeks, of course. Yes, that's the brand new Crowley Time live show entitled Link's Gambit, and it premieres at the festival on Sunday the 7th of September 2025. After a little bit of reorganisation and rescheduling, I can now confirm that the show will be at 4:30pm on the 7th and will feature Radio 4 and Elden Ring star Kiara Goldsmith and Wooden Overcoats and Star Wars mainstay Andy Seacombe with live music from Icelandic sound wizard Odin Orn-Hilmarsson. Tickets are already selling pretty fast, so don't leave it too long to book yours. And I'm chuffed to my bottom to say that you can also catch me in two other shows at London Podcast Festival. The Beef and Dairy Network podcast the day before at 2pm on Saturday the 6th of September, and right after Crowley Time on the 7th, our brand new 10th anniversary Wooden Overcoats special at 7pm. That's right, all new Crowley Time, Beef and Dairy and Wooden Overcoats, all at the same festival. Both Beef and Coats are hot tickets, so definitely book those double quick. In fact, even though Wooden Overcoats has been bumped up to the biggest room in the whole building, it's still almost sold out. But fear not, if you miss out on tickets to either Beefy or Woody, or you can't make it to the venue in person, you can get online streaming video tickets to watch both those shows live or on demand for a week after the performance. Not Crowley Time though, you can only catch that one live and in person, so book fast and get your keister to Old London Town, skipper! You can find all podcast festival bookings at kingsplace.co.uk or follow the link at live.crowleytime.com. So, to summarise, you've booked your tickets to all those shows and you've got your most comfortable underpants lined up for all the sitting down and watching live podcasts you'll be doing. But now what? Well, this is when you'll want to catch up on Link's story so far before the day. So here you go, every instalment of the Space Cartographer's adventures in one handy package. These were taken from all through the history of Crowley Time, starting way back in episode 1. So listen out for a bunch of episode-specific goodies, like guest vocals from Lucy Farrett from episode 21, and a whole Euro-futuristic guest monologue from Felix Trench from episode 14, among other quirks and curios. Now, take your protein pills, put your helmet on, fill up your peanut butter bath, strap your freakish lizard son into his cute little car seat, and prepare to blast off for star-charting adventure with Link Tangent, Space Cartographer.
These are the diaries of Link Tangent, Space Cartographer, faithfully maintained and preserved in case I die suddenly on the toilet or something and people want to know what I've been up to. Link's log, space year 2. I lighted on the planet Dog Hair 6 to refuel my space petrol tank and the peanut butter taps in the rec room. The people of Dog Hair 6 are bipeds with a human-like respiratory and circulatory system, and they all, completely by chance, look exactly like tall, slim, buxom women, only green. After 1.5 space years wandering alone in the cosmos, mapping out my journey, this created an odd stirring in the pit of my stomach and penis, which I tried to conceal. All the same, I propositioned the Dogharian peanut butter merchant, but was rebuffed. I should have seen it coming. A species consisting entirely of one feminine gender was unlikely to have been attracted to my large grey wiry beard or gentleman's blubber. Also, they reproduce via autonomous cellular mitosis and as such have no genitalia. Somehow I found this even more arousing. Sometimes I wonder if I've been flying the spaceways too long. Suffice to say, I have added Dog Hair 6 to the list of planets I am no longer invited to visit, alongside Babylon, Bikini Model Prime, and the planet of frogs with tits. Still, as a space cartographer, my charge is clear, and I am satisfied that I can add another planet to our charts. Another small step in my ongoing mission to map my appointed galaxy. This achievement was marred only by the small piece of bad news I received after takeoff on my ship's computer. It was Galactic Central Command, telling me that they'd rejected all my charts so far, as I had failed to incorporate the fact that space is 3D. But how do I chart three-dimensional space on this graph paper? It's a thorny issue, and one which will require much thought. after my peanut butter bath. This is Link Tangent, space cartographer, signing off. Now, where's my flannel? These are the diaries of Link Tangent, space cartographer, faithfully maintained and preserved in case I fall into a space hole and people want to know what I've been up to. Link's log, space year 3. Happy new space year to me. The Galactic Central Command NSYE party was a frenetic affair. The highlight was when a couple of Dargelians from accounting suggested that we all do the Macarena. What we didn't realize was that on Dargel Prime, a Macarena is an act of ritual self-flagellation performed underneath the spurting gore of slaughtered space cattle, rather than a whimsical yet unchallenging dance devised by older Spanish men. Despite the fact that the function hall smelt of a slaughterhouse for the duration of the party, the exercise proved to energize the crowd, and there was a particularly amusing moment when Executive Director John Tar slipped on a clot and fell into the hors d'oeuvres. We all shared a good laugh, and the Executive Director, in an act of clemency, delayed the Dargelians' execution until the following morning. Finally, the critical moment came as the GCC mothership neared the gravitational equinox of universal orbit. 10, 9, Orange, 7, Blobfish, Asparagus, 4, 3, Anus, 1, Happy New Space Year. I had hoped that my distance from the main crowd would avoid any uncomfortable equinox kissing, but to my surprise, a chameleonoid from Human Resources was camouflaged against a nearby pillar. Cue an unexpected 3 minutes with his impossibly long, extendable tongue shoved down the back of my throat, and down my esophagus, through my stomach, and ending somewhere around my large intestine. When he finally retracted his tongue, he told me there was now a 50-50 chance that I was carrying up to a dozen of his eggs, and that I should probably get tested. He then slithered away and ate an insectian across the room, which brought the party to an abrupt halt, as it was the DJ. Now, several days later, I don't appear to be showing any signs of pregnancy, although of course it's best to be sure. I really should get checked out in the medical bay. But there's just so much of this universe still unmapped. This is Link Tangent, space cartographer, signing off. My large intestine feels itchy. These are the diaries of Link Tangent, space cartographer, faithfully maintained and preserved in case the yoga instructor I never paid catches up with me one day and people want to know why I was found in several trash compactors. Link's log, space year 3, space month, Titmouse. An uneventful few space weeks mapping the Gamma Quadrant, mostly just gas giants and cream craters, save for one encounter. I had noticed myself gaining weight. My cold-proof blubber, the pride of any right-thinking astro-man, had become excessive, and I was having difficulty squeezing through the docking tube. I put it down to months spent in zero gravity, my unchallenged muscles atrophying and turning into mere meat. I decided some exercise was in order, so I departed the Gamma Quadrant to the closest planet with breathable air and a less creamy surface, Gelgon. During a previous time of extended planet-side leave, I had spent many a pleasant morning jogging along the silver sands and black lakes of Gelgon and recuperated in the local spa with a Gelgonese Bloody Mary, made with real Zargothrope blood. Suffice to say, once I touched down at Spa Base, it became clear that Gelgon was not what it once was. Several of the spa buildings had sunk into what appeared to be a bubbling purple ooze emanating from the planet's crust. The land was pockmarked all over with treacherous pits, each leading to a well of that same viscous purple liquid. As far as the eye could see, there was not a living soul around. I also saw on a nearby sign that they no longer offered free cable. After 20 minutes of searching, I finally found a Gelgon local. From his battered name tag, I could deduce that he had previously worked at the spa as a greeter, and that his name was Kledge. Kledge informed me that the Gelgonese people had committed a crime against nature in excessively mining the black crystals native to their home world. These crystals were sold intergalactically as a hyper-efficient fuel, and when melted down and injected into the armpit, as a powerful hallucinogen. The Gelgons had disregarded their scientists' warnings and mined the planet bare of the black crystal, only to then discover that these crystals were a natural antibody to that bubbling purple goop. And with the planet's chemical makeup now devoid of the crystal's good influence, the goop was free to rise to the planet's surface and claim it as its own. I asked how long ago this great collapse had happened, and Cledge informed me that it was about a week ago and that they all still felt really pretty silly about the whole thing. I was downhearted, and at this point really craving a hard drink. But I dug deep into my reserves of determination and told myself that an entire race's near destruction was no reason to neglect one's health. Stripping down to my space onesie and jogging pouch, I set off on an exploratory run around the local region, hoping that I might find further signs of survivors, or even, if I was very lucky, an open bar. As I journeyed further and further from my spacecraft, I saw that indeed the whole planet had succumbed to the goo. The silver sands were now blemished with acid scorches, and the black lakes boiled with a heat which made the air thick. It smelled of a rotten jack-o'-lantern that someone had pissed in. After about half a mile, my legs were becoming fatigued, and I also noticed something else: a roiling, churning pain in my swollen stomach. I put it down to the now perverted atmosphere of the planet and paused to lean against an outcrop momentarily, hoping it would pass. The pain only became more intense. I slithered out of my onesie, unbolted my pouch, and crouched over the dry dirt, assuming that what I was experiencing was an uncomfortable bowel movement, probably brought on by the out-of-date custard pills I'd eaten for breakfast that morning. The pain I experienced while twisting and contorting my guts was like nothing I had ever felt before. At one point, I feared I might pass out, or at least say a really bad curse word out loud. Eventually, after 20 or 30 minutes, it was all over. I turned and, expecting to see the most grotesque turds ever lain by a man, I was stunned to see a clutch of 8 eggs, still moist and glistening from my passages. I was dumbstruck. I sat with the eggs for the following several hours, ever aware of the encroaching goo that threatened to engulf all around it. Eventually, there was some movement. The eggs twitched, convulsed, and eventually cracked. The creatures which poured forth were like nothing I'd seen before. They were scaly, six-limbed, lizard-like animals, only with my face. My unmistakable face, pasted awkwardly on the front of their tiny lizard heads as if by an entry-level graphic designer. They took one look at me and immediately scattered off into unknown parts of the underbrush. I think I heard one of them say, "Mama," before it went. In all honesty, I had no idea what to do about this, so I went back to my ship and flew away, in order to record this log entry and avoid any more awkward encounters. Perhaps from these 8 creatures, a mighty race of half-link, half-lizard beings will rise and form a towering civilization one day. The Linksurds. Or, more likely, perhaps they'll get lost and be consumed by the purple goo like the rest of that whole stupid planet full of avaricious dummies. In lighter news, my unwanted extra bulk has begun to recede after I shed my eggs, so perhaps I am not quite as out of shape as I had imagined. It seems somebody has earned an extra quail for space dinner tonight, and that someone is myself, Link Tangent, space cartographer. All there is left to do today is to go down to the quail coops on the 4th deck and fire up the griddle. And scratch off Gelgon as an inhabited planet on our charts, of course. This is Link Tangent, space cartographer, signing off. Mama. Oh, what was that? These are the diaries of Link Tangent, space cartographer, faithfully maintained and preserved in case I get hit in the head at some point and want to know who I am and what I'm doing. Link's log, space year 3, space month, hamburger. As a result of my adventures on planet Gelgon, where I was exposed to a mysterious purple goo that had consumed all of the planet's inhabitants,
See Crowley Time Episode 5, True Believers.
I was ordered to return to the Galactic Central Command mothership for study and quarantine. This is routine for any and all encounters with hazardous alien materials, but I couldn't help but feel irritated that my charting of the Gamma Quadrant was being interrupted, and that I would have to delay my annual trip to Prostitutalon 4. There was also a complication: the small friend I had made along the way, and I mean made, quite literally. While on planet Gelgon, I had laid a large clutch of eggs which hatched into a litter of small lizards with my distressingly human face. Most of them scattered off into the distance, but one of them had found its way into my ship before takeoff and was now an unofficial passenger on my mission. My first instinct was to start freaking out and drop the hybrid creature into the ship's nuclear fusion drive, but then he looked up at me with his me face and called me Mama, and my cold heart melted. This horrifying man-lizard was my child, and I would be his space parent. I named him Little Dribbles. But what would Galactic Central Command make of him? Generally, copulation with exotic alien races was strongly encouraged, largely because the GCC realized early on that there was no way of stopping us, and if we were doing this, we might as well do it with gusto. On the other hand, regulations state that all previously undiscovered alien life forms must be submitted for immediate dissection and labeling, and I wasn't prepared to let that happen to my only son, even if he did have strange little scaly balls. As I Tokyo drifted my spaceship into the landing bay, I was gritting my teeth and pinching my nipples for a fight. Fortunately, once Little Dribbles and I had been transferred to the inspection bay, the officer on duty took one look at my lizard boy and said, "Oh yeah, we get those little lizard guys all the time, mostly because McGillicuddy can't keep his tongue dick in his mouth pants." Suddenly, I was set upon by a flashback sequence. I was back at the GCC New Space Year's Eve party, and an unknown chameleonoid was ramming his meter-long tongue down my throat.
See Crowley Time Episode 3. Excelsior!
This, I realized, must have been the opportunistic chameleonoid skank McGillicuddy. It was he who had impregnated me and fathered Little Dribbles. I was set upon by myriad questions. Where was McGillicuddy now? Did he realize what he'd done? And could I sue him for child support? These questions were temporarily shelved, however, because at that very moment, a mysterious nozzle emerged from the wall opposite and fired a laser beam which instantaneously dissolved my spacesuit, leaving me naked as the Horseshoe Nebula. I made a half-hearted effort to cover my butcher's shop window and my little man-tits with my hands, and then suddenly the floor opened up beneath us, and Little Dribbles and I were sent screeching down a long tube, my bare buttocks making a sound like a balloon fucking a windshield as they skidded against the metal walls. The tube fired me out of its back end like a big pink turd, and I found myself face down in a small, empty, white room. I peeled myself off the cold floor and searched about myself in a panic. Had Little Dribbles survived the fall? Relief. He was sitting in the corner picking his human nose with a sharp, scaly claw. I advised caution, which Little Dribbles disregarded entirely. It was then that I noticed the computer terminal built into the wall, the only feature in an otherwise featureless space. I tapped the screen experimentally. A voice responded. "You are in quarantine. Please select from the following options." A set of buttons appeared. Water. Nutritional paste. Complete set of Twilight novels. 12 billion hours of true crime podcasts. Complain about quarantine on social media. Record journal. After a day as eventful as this, I knew exactly what I had to do. And after smearing my entire body with nutritional paste and reading all the Twilight books, I began recording this log entry. Only 3 space weeks and 6 space days of quarantine to go. Normally I would fear for my sanity under this extreme isolation, but as long as I've got a lizard with my own human face here to keep me company, I'm sure I'll pull through. This is Napoleon Bonaparte, Emperor of France, signing off. These are the diaries of Link Tangent, space cartographer, faithfully maintained and preserved in case my growing sense of isolation robs me of my short-term memory. Link's log, space year 3. I have recently completed my extended quarantine following possible extraterrestrial contamination.
See Crowley Time Episode 8, True Believers? Or don't bother, I know you're busy. We're all busy.
After spending 4 whole space weeks with nobody but my part lizard, part human son, Little Dribbles, for company, I had grown desperate for the musky smell and clammy touch of my fellow man. The moment my airtight quarantine cell was opened, I threw myself into the arms of the first being to cross the threshold in a frenzy of affection deprivation. Unfortunately, the scientist in question was a porcupinian from Priculon 12, and the lab boys had to spend the next 5 hours pulling her long spines out of my chest, forearms, and jewelry box. Nevertheless, I was elated. After examination, the GCC High Council ruled that I posed no bacterial or viral threat to the galaxy's sentient races, but that they didn't like the look of my mean little face or the cut of my jib, so they were not yet prepared to return me to active cartographic duty. Instead, I have been given the probationary task of re-indexing and reclassifying the command's archives, something which is done every space year to justify the Council's extortionate budget requests. So here I am, the once great space cartographer, relegated to sifting through the logs of other, lesser space cartographers, galactic surveyors, and star peepers. A stray data tape has just caught my eye. Unlike the 60,472 data tapes before it, it appears to have no index number or indeed classification. I've just found it at the bottom of a crate, beneath a discarded stack of copies of Black Hole magazine, a publication aimed at those who get rock hard at the thought of being simultaneously burnt to a crisp and spaghettified. I've never seen the appeal myself. I'm more of a White Dwarf guy. The tape has some faded writing on it. It appears to say something about a European onion. As luck would have it, my workstation comes equipped with a data tape reader. Let's see what we have here.
What happened to the European Union? Let me tell you. At the end of the second millennium, against a dark and tawdry world, Western Europe lit the sky with its humanistic idealism and discovered wealth. An economic powerhouse which boasted not only the world's favorite tourist destinations, but also Brussels. The EU was the global hub of industries from food to finance, from education to espionage. The European Union was formed in the decades following the Second World War, originally as a trade partnership between 6 countries, the ECSC, European Coal and Steel Community. It evolved into the European Economic Community, then simply the European Community, then the European Union, and, in the third millennium, the EFU, or European Federal Union. Then the European Federation. Then the Democratic Republic of Europe. Then the Democratic Kingdom of Europe. Then the Kingdom of Europe. And then the kingdoms of Northern Europe and Southern Europe. Then the Great Swedish Empire. The Great Swedish Empire and the United Balkan Territories, the Great Swedish Empire and the United Balkan and Baltic Territories, the Balkan-Baltic Free Republic, the Baltic People's Democracy, the Baltic People's Tyranny, the Baltic People's Massive Tennis Court, then the Lands of the Risen Dead, then the Empty Place, Dragon's Watch, the Laugh Track Without a Sitcom, the Children's Republic of Europe, the Children's Republic of Caca, Kill Parents Land, Kill Parents Land and the Western Irish Parents Refuge, Kill Parents Land and Kill Children Land, the Barren Earth, the Unexplored New World, the Unexplored New World and the Western Scientific Colonies, Queen Pipette's Enlightened Scientific Territories, Greater Australia, and, finally, the European Sphere Tree. The European Sphere Tree has its roots, literal and metaphorical, in a much-loved Belgian landmark, the Atomium. Originally built as a competitor to Paris's Eiffel Tower, this metallic model of a molecule hid a secret. At the top, where only an accidental cleaner might hit it, was a button. One which, when pushed, activated the Atomium. The Atomium grew. New metal arms extended out of the spheres, each with its own sphere at the end. From those came more arms and more spheres. It drilled down below it. It stretched up high. It crawled along the ground, devastating the nearby historic city of Kinepolis before marching on the center of Brussels, where Spanish guild buildings were smashed and swallowed by ever-growing arms and spheres. From central Brussels, the atomium grew inexorably out through the E411 motorway, Antwerp Zoo, across the French border, Germany, the English Channel. Great hulking metal limbs drove into concrete and earth, destroying homes and habitats. It climbed over the Alps and the Pyrenees, crushing the mountains in the process. Through Bratislava, Budapest, over the Bulgarian border, until eventually it stopped at the Arctic Circle, the Mediterranean, the Atlantic, a meandering eastern boundary, and 3 of the 5 Nordic countries. The metal tree grew up and up, pushing towards the atmosphere. With little hope of reclaiming their former lives, Europeans moved into the spheres. Where once a fractious union covered the land, now its descendants climbed into metal branches which seemed to symbolize not only the bonds between atoms, but those between this frightened community. Another Europe was born, and against all sense, it worked. For the first time in its long and bellicose history, Europe knew unity. Sleeping spaces were typically set up in the connecting branches, and the spheres were quickly taken over by cafe culture and paintings. Materialism was subsumed by commonality. These new European citizens lived in a tree of ideas, a society-wide renaissance which democratized learning and prized original thought. They flitted like bespectacled robins from sphere to sphere to share their thoughts over espressos and cigarettes. At night, they put down their books, picked up their instruments, and sang and danced and drank and feasted. However, although the tree had fostered this marvelous way of life, so too did it carry the seeds of the European utopia's ruin. With the destruction of all natural habitats on ground level, except Switzerland, but they weren't sharing, and the spheres stretching up into thin atmosphere, oxygen levels within the tree waned. So, while they sucked their espressos and cigarettes, the new Europeans ignored their headaches and made a plan. A young girl was chosen. The team in charge of the project had looked for an older candidate. However, their plan depended on someone with a high tolerance to low levels of oxygen. No adult in the tree was suitable. A lifetime of breathing had made them too fond of oxygen. Inés González, a 12-year-old from Nueva Madrid, was a poor student, not popular, and frequently in detention for stealing, and an exceptional swimmer. Inés had very sturdy lungs, which allowed her to stay underwater for longer than her peers, rocketing along beneath them when they came up for air. After her parents were placated with an extra ration of paintings, she was sent to the topmost sphere of the tree, the base of which was fitted with explosives, and she was blasted into space. Her mission? To find oxygen. On her journey, Inés, who steered the sphere with a big wooden wheel, marveled at the worlds she discovered. She came across a gas giant who was just waking up and looking for his breakfast. She met a young shepherd on a small moon who wore a bright yellow scarf, which she stole. She plunged into the hearts of stars, looped the loop round nebulas, hitched a ride on a comet. She peered into a black hole and saw herself reflected. The mirror Inés shyly looked back at her, reached out a delicate hand, and stole the scarf. Many months into her travels, Inés triumphed. A planet lay before her, full of blues and greens and browns, with one enormous tree. Its trunk was straight as a pine, while its branches billowed like a willow. It grew beyond the atmosphere. It pumped oxygen throughout the star system. Armed with a pair of garden shears and tethered to her sphere with a bit of old rope, Inés floated into the tree and was careful to not damage the many intricately woven birds' nests. She made a cutting and then for home, carrying a branch and as many eggs as she could fit in her shirt. On Earth, the European sphere tree was suffering. The ill, the dying, the dead. Thousands of Europeans passed out into their ashtrays and espresso cups or quietly embracing their closest watercolors. Ines was greeted by top European science baristas who took her cutting and planted it in the soil right at the base of their home, where the atomium had originally drilled down below it and a patch of earth was exposed. The cutting took quickly, for it was an invasive species. It grew up through the metal branches and spheres, coating every surface green and brown and pumping out glorious oxygen. Lungs expanded. Headaches dissipated. Ines was celebrated, a statue made in her honor, and her name passed down from generation to generation. I hope that answers your question, my grandchild, young Ines. For that is what happened to the European Union.
I'm not sure what to say. I'm sitting here somewhat stunned. I have tears in my eyes, but I'm not entirely sure why. Little Dribbles is chewing the corner of the desk. Was this European Union a great Earth civilization, as this tape suggests, not unlike our Galactic Central Command? Or was it the mere conjuring of some kindly old codger for an enchanting bedtime story? Will I ever truly know? Either way, the tape doesn't fit into any of the classification matrices for our filing system, so it has to be destroyed. Here you go, Little Dribbles. And now, with the echoes of great civilizations bouncing around my brain and a lingering appetite for onions in my heart, I must continue with my tedious task. This is Link Tangent Space Cartographer signing off. Oh, come on, Little Dribbles, don't do that on the desk. Use your tray. These are the diaries of Link Tangent, Space Cartographer. Vacuum sealed for freshness and best enjoyed with an avocado-based dip. Link's log, space year 4, space month, The time has finally come. After over a year of probationary desk work in the Galactic Central Command archives,
See Crowley Time, episode 14, true believers.
I have finally been allowed to reapply for active space duty, the flying around and writing things down kind. At this very second, I'm sitting outside the conference chamber awaiting my moment. Shortly, I will be called in to plead my case before the big cheese of the GCC Cartographic Department. Or, more accurately, the Senior Cartographic Cheese Second Class. She's one of the most powerful people in the organization, answerable only to the departmental head cheese. As these hearings are a matter of public record, I am permitted to record the proceedings from my log. Oh, I hear them calling my name. Wish me luck, Little Dribbles.
Cartographer Tangent, it is important that you realize that this review does not mean, by any stretch of the Galactic Central Command's administrative procedures, that we like you.
Understood, Madam Cheese.
Please, call me Lindsay.
Okay.
Mr. Tangent, we, and I just mean me, I'm using the cheese we here, we have had to review your case very carefully.
I would expect nothing less.
In the 19th month of Space Year 3, you did return your craft to the GCC mothership, having both been exposed to a dangerous toxic substance and birthed a non-regulation child.
Mama!
Shh, quiet, Little Dribbles. Yes, Your Cheeseness, that is correct. Pardon me, Lindsay.
While it has been proven that your impregnation originated on this very ship, an operative of the cartographic department should know better than to expose themselves to toxic space goo while on a foreign world.
But, Lindsay, as I said in my statement, I was on space annual leave at the time.
Do not interrupt the cheese! Your Lindsay privileges are hereby rescinded.
Understood, Your Cheeseness.
As you so impudently reminded me, you were not on active duty at the time of the exposure, and you turned yourself over to the quarantine team on return to the mothership. You also kept your screaming to a minimum while in the isolation chamber, and wanking. These merits have all been noted.
Thank you, Your Cheeseness. It's hard to knock one out when there's a lizard with your own face watching you from across a small white room. But not impossible.
Stenographer, read that back to me.
It's hard to knock one out when there's a lizard with your own face watching you from across a small white room, but not impossible.
Thanks, just testing. However, Tangent, we must take your entire record into account. These have not been your only deviations from GCC protocol. For example, there was that time you failed to declare an entire case of chocolate-infused peanut butter body cream to the mothership's customs officer on return from your voyage to Confecticon 9.
This I admit.
Despite drawing Secretary Boktan Garoth for Secret Santa for space years ago, you did not, in fact, buy him a present.
That one was my bad.
Especially offensive considering that you had all that illicit peanut butter body cream lying around.
Forgive me, Madam Cheese, but I'd already finished it.
In a week? Good God, man.
What can I say? I'm a peanut butter guy.
Evidently. You failed to report for poo-poo duty at the dog park at Station Command 37900.
Yes, I apologize for that.
Lastly, it has been noted that you failed to RSVP to Commander Zing Tong Du's stag party.
That is true, but I had put down my deposit for the hotel room, so it was me that lost out in that instance, Your Cheeseness.
You sure did. I took your place and we tore the asshole out of that whole weekend.
Goodness.
It was good. In any case, we have weighed the balance of your sins and your successes, your mediocre ability as a cartographer and our devastating staff shortages, your smell and your mighty gentleman's blubber. So, in communication with my fellow departmental cheeses and the arch-mother mind, the decision has been reached to return you to active cartographic duty with immediate effect.
Hot thrusters!
On one condition. That you surrender your lizard man offspring to our lab boys for invasive testing and general torture at once.
Mama!
You mean give up little dribbles? What on earth could you hope to learn from him?
Oh, I don't know. See if scalpels cut him.
I'm pretty sure they do.
You know how sharp the scalpels might need to be. Do we need another tool? Maybe a screwdriver?
Why would you? Okay.
A wrench. I don't know how strong he is. I haven't held him before. Wrench, maybe to see if we need to get inside that thing. I don't know, maybe a spirit level would help.
Spirit level? Your Cheeseness.
See if he likes to wear clothes. I've got a fabulous little doll's outfit I'd like to put him in.
He does like to wear little clothes.
Maybe feed him some high-grade poison. See if that burns his insides.
Let's see what merit that experiment would have.
I'm also interested in seeing if I can teach him Spanish.
Well, Your Cheeseness, I'm sorry. I can't give up my own child. Even a very scaly child with 2 forked tongues. The only way I'll return to active cartographic duty is with my space sextant at my hip and little dribbles at my side.
Well, okay then.
Huh? Sorry, what? Really?
Yeah, I was just chancing my arm, really, ever since I clapped eyes on that little freak. I've wanted to stick some electrodes on it and see what happens, but what the heck? From one peanut butter guy to another. You're reinstated.
Hyperdrive! Thank you, Your Cheeseness.
No link? Call me Lindsay. And if you find any more discount chocolate-infused peanut butter body cream, you can call me later.
Gosh.
Don't write that last part down, stenographer.
You got it, Lindsay.
Not you. You can't call me Lindsay.
I'm sorry.
You still have to call me Queen Wiggle Waggle.
Yes, Queen Wiggle Waggle.
Excellent.
Can I go?
Yes, cartographer Tangent, go. Go and map the spaceways once more.
Can do. And I'll see you around, I guess.
Yes, you will.
Oh, like, I guess I'll see you at lunch for one thing.
You will see me at lunch.
Oh, good. Well, I'll see you then.
I'll see you at the table.
In the officers' quarters.
Top table.
Well,
yes.
That's quite yeah. Oh.
You'll be sitting next to me.
Oh, great.
Make sure you bring your little butt.
Is now some hours later. I was in the GCC canteen celebrating my reinstatement with some of the team from the cartographic department for several hours and have got absolutely nebulated on Arcturan tequila suppositories. The bubbles are nice. They go blue, 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 blue. Tomorrow, I ship out once more on my beloved craft, CDA 387. Or as I like to call her, Space Car. Oh, Space Car, flying through the eternal nighttime. But before that, my main concern is getting through the night. For getting me back my sextant, I owe Cheese Lindsay a huge debt. Only, I'm afraid she might want to call it in sooner than expected. One of the guys in the canteen said he saw her roaming the corridors with a bottle of olive oil, a chef's hat, a comically oversized whisk, and a mischievous glint in her eye. And I've had far too much tequila up my ass tonight to deal with that whole situation. So, here I am, hiding inside a spacesuit in a maintenance locker in the main hangar. I can see my beloved space car right now through the little slits in the locker door. I can practically taste the astro dust already. Although that could be because Little Dribbles farted in the suit a few minutes ago. Oh, Little Dribbles. Well, I can feel Sleep's velvet-gloved fingers tugging on my eyelids, so I guess this is where I'll be spending my last night on the mothership. Tonight, dangling from a hook in a smelly maintenance space onesie. Tomorrow, back to the spaceways, and adventure, and stars, and trying weird space delicacies at asteroidal truck stops, and throwing up in the space bathrooms of asteroidal truck stops. Oh, the musty smell of an out-of-date space truck stop, space bathroom, space air freshener. How I've missed it. This is Link Tangent, space cartographer once more. Signing off. No, not there.
Spooky tidings to you, listeners. I do trust that you had an enjoyable Halloween night, and that as old Nick skipped along the roof tiles, celebrating his last night of freedom before his annual All Saints' Day banishment, he passed over your house and whispered a curse down your obnoxious neighbor's chimbley instead. But while all the world's real devils and demons have been cast out, we still have those created by the warped minds of our fellow humans to put the frighteners up us, and perhaps if we're good, other implements too. Tonight's spine and bum-tingling tale is the erotic horror classic Sodom in Cirencester by Ned Wheatsheaf. And let's just say, I'm even more excited than usual to get the spine cracked on this one. So without further ado, let's get stuck in. Chapter 1. Frilly knickers on the vestry floor. Oh, I should cocoa. Ava Eriksson was gazing disconsolately at the baggage carousel at Stansted Arrivals. She had just stepped off the 10:20 from Stockholm, and already the grey skies over London were dulling her usually sunny outlook. All this changed in an instant, however, when she felt a gentle tap on her shoulder. She span around to see a rakishly handsome face with neatly trimmed whiskers, cheekbones you could cut a traditional Swedish cheese pie with, and the darkest, most penetrating eyes she had ever felt alight upon her. "Hello, young lady. My name's Harry Mephisto, and you look like you could do with a right good..."
Hello? Hello? Can anyone read me? This is Link Tangent making an emergency distress call. I've been trying to reach Galactic Central Command, but I think my transmitter was damaged in an attack by that thing. So I'm broadcasting on every frequency that will connect to tell you that these are the diaries of Link Tangent Space Cartographer, faithfully maintained in case I fall victim to the thing stalking my ship and you want to know what to call the pile of giblets you find later. Link's log, space year, Gloi Bix, space month, November. I've been loyally fulfilling my cartographic duties, surveying this sector of space in my trusty ship, Space Car, for some weeks now, accompanied only by little Dribbles, my small lizard son who has the exact same face as me. But we'll get to that. Today I began mapping the Spicy Tempura Nebula, a task which was proving to be as uneventful as it was tedious, until suddenly I noticed an anomaly. A distress beacon, only 0.00001 light-years from the event horizon of a nearby brown hole. These space phenomena have many of the same incredible physical properties as a black hole, but they smell worse. It appeared to be a GCC standard distress broadcast, but any GCC ratified spacefarer would know never to go within a barge pole's length of the event horizon. At least, no barge pole shorter than 0.0001 light-years. Once the ship was close enough to establish visual contact, it looked like a standard T-93 see-you-later shipping freighter. I held its frequency and was met by the panicked face of the pilot, a very distressed-looking Cygnosian. Cygnosians, if you don't know, have extremely long necks, not unlike Earth swans, and are covered in white feathers, not unlike Earth swans, and have wings and webbed feet almost exactly like Earth swans, but human noses. I reassured him that I was on my way. I used my suction cup grappler to latch onto the struggling vessel and pull it well back from the point of terminal accretion before extending my docking tube and boarding. As soon as I stepped aboard, I knew something was wrong. The entire ship was silent, and the smell was overpowering, an emission from the brown hole's inner ring. No, this was much more familiar. The source of the smell became clear when I stepped into the cockpit. There, slumped over the dash, just beneath the fuzzy space dice and just to the left of the jiggly space hula girl ornament, was the Cygnosian pilot. Dead. But stranger still, from the intense stench, the visible decomposition, and the space vultures pecking curiously at the windshield, it seemed apparent that the pilot had been dead for weeks, days at least, and yet I had spoken to him only minutes before. Curious. Wary of prolonged exposure to brown radiation and being branded as stinky poo pants, I followed the GCC's emergency scuppering protocol double quick. I stole the pilot's watch, ransacked the ship's peanut butter stocks, and set the freighter's controls for the heart of the hole. Back on Space Car, I mournfully watched the freighter disappear into the darkness of the brown hole with a tiny, distant I turned Space Car back towards where I'd left off mapping the Spicy Tempura Nebula, the bottom left-hand corner near the gas station, but was startled to discover that my main thrusters had been taken offline. Manually. But aside from little Dribbles, I was alone on this ship. Wasn't I? Oh God. Oh God, it's getting closer. Oh God, please don't...
You tried? Reckon you could try again? Implored Ava. Look, love, I may be the son of literal Satan, but I'm not a machine, replied Harry, his sweaty body sliding limply off Ava onto the slightly rucked-up sheets beneath. But I haven't even, Ava began to protest, before being cut off by some truly hellish snoring from Harry. Typical, huffed Ava. I spent hours and hours working on that little goat, Will.
Hello? Hello? Do you still read me? I hope, the thing has moved on to another part of Space Car, but I managed to conceal myself inside this large ventilation duct just in time, and it passed by so close that I got a good look at it, and it's everything I feared. But let me go back. On my way to investigate the deactivated thruster controls, I suddenly heard a monstrous sound, sort of like... Yes, like that. After patting my groin and reassuring myself that I had not, as I feared, filled my airtight spacesuit with hot urine, I inched myself along the hallway and peered into the engine room, only to be knocked back, wham, by some huge spindly-limbed being at least 8 feet long as it fired past me. I wonder if I hadn't been flattened against the wall, whether it might not have torn right through me, suit, blubber, and all. But the really frightening thing was the brief glimpse I got of the creature as it passed. I didn't dare believe it at first, but I knew deep down straight away. I knew what I was looking at. If you've received my transmissions before, you might have noticed that during this log entry, I've not been accompanied by my usual companion. My lizard son, little Dribbles. You haven't been hearing his sweet little cries of Mama. Oh God. Oh God. Oh God. I think it's picked up my scent. I think he's picked up my scent. Oh God.
Well, look, I could try putting a finger up there. Apparently, with men, sometimes that can help.
Do you read? Do you read? Hello? I have managed to escape the duct with my blubber intact, and I'm even now trying to evade the beast, which, as you probably already surmised, can best be described as Big Dribbles. How he has grown so suddenly, and how his usually sweet attitude has turned so, how can I put it, counterproductively murderous, I cannot say. Is this just the adult stage of his life, arriving more suddenly than expected? Or was he gravely affected by the toxic radiation from the brown hole? Either way, it doesn't matter. It's a question of survival now, so I must come to terms with the possibility that I may have to kill my own lizard son. I've made it to the armory closet. Come on, come on, come on. Yes! Now, we're here. My extra-large Mondo compass with 4-foot titanium spike for mapping extra-large areas of space and for ceremonial occasions. This should put a stop to that... Oh God, but can I do it? It may be a vicious snarling beast, but after all, it's still my child. What can I... Little Dribbles, what are you doing in here? Mama. You were hiding in the armory closet, but if you're in here, then that thing can't be Little Dribbles. All right then. Come and get me, you great big phony lizard bag.
It's nothing to do with you, I'm just tired, insisted Harry. Well, if this is how the legions of hell do business, I might as well go and become a nun, pouted Abe.
Come in. Come in. This is Link Tangent. It's over. I'm alive. I can't believe it, but I'm alive. In its rage, the supposed Big Dribbles charged straight at me, right onto the 4-foot bayonet spike of my ceremonial Mondo compass. As it flailed desperately for life, it changed. It mutated before my eyes, firstly into an exact double of the Cygnosian pilot, no doubt that's what I'd conversed with over the comlink, then into a tastelessly gaudy armchair, then into several different breakfast cereal mascots, then ancient philosopher Peter Andre, then the armchair again, but this time swinging a big old set of balls, until finally collapsing lifeless in the form of a sort of teddy bear-looking creature with 4 huge compound eyes and 6 long mantis-like limbs. This explained everything. While I had never before encountered a morphozoid in person, their legend is known to all who venture into the far reaches of deep space. Stealthy, shape-changing parasites of extreme cunning and near-infinite adaptability to different environments, whose only objective is to infiltrate, feed on living things, and then hide until the urge to feed takes them again. So strong and adaptable is the morphozoid that I'm not sure I can trust that it's truly dead. But there's one place close by that I know no living creature can adapt to. The winking epicenter of a brown hole. So I've loaded its body into one of Space Car's torpedo tubes, and in 3, 2, 1... and it is done. Rest in stink, morpho creep. If there's one good thing to take away from this encounter, it's the realization of just how much my beloved lizard son has come to mean to me. Even when it was kill or be killed, I knew I could never bring myself to harm little Dribbles, no matter how unlittle he may be. Mama to you too, my sweet scaly boy. The cold, unmarked highways of space are a less lonely place with you around. But no matter how cold or how lonely or how filled with razor-clawed Peter Andres these starfields may be, it's good to be back, mapping them for all they're worth, which on my contract is 12 cred bucks 50 per cubic light year. A couple more weeks and I'll have enough saved up to buy a space helmet with no cracks in it. This is Link Tangent getting back to work, signing off. Oh, God, the smell of that brown hole really lingers, doesn't it?
Just as he was about to step onto the plane, Ava paused and turned. "And when you go bragging to your demon mates about this," she shouted down at Harry, who waved from the runway, "don't make it sound like I had a good time, because I didn't." "I won't," Harry lied. The end. Well,
Ava's naughty escapades certainly contained a lot more disappointment and embarrassment than I remembered, listeners. But at least it was very, very descriptive. And whether you've ever visited a strange new place, or you've struggled to live up to unrealistic expectations, or you've found yourself in a compromising position involving a traffic warden and a chocolate eclair, there's something in Ned Wheatsheaf's story that everyone can relate to. Join me for more adventures outside of your comfort zone next time we rattle the dusty old doorknob of the Drama Parlor.
These are the diaries of Link Tangent, Space Cartographer, faithfully maintained in case I do something really good or really bad in the future and my biographer needs some background on me. Link's log, Space Year 7, Space Month Bev Tembron. It is with no small amount of pride and an equal level of dread that I record the events of this day. The day that I, good old Link Tangent, was invited to the Intergalactic Convention of Space Cartographers and Stationary Salespersons as a guest speaker. Finally, my many space years of service mapping the universe for Galactic Central Command bring me more than just a destructive peanut butter habit and a severe case of masturbator's elbow. I mean, from drawing the maps, you understand. This time around, the IXCUS, that is, the Intergalactic Convention of Space Cartographers and Stationary Salespersons, was being held in a major conference dome on Bathtub 9, known for being the ninth moon discovered by GCC to look quite like a bathtub. To be honest, it's a pretty mediocre bathtub moon. Apart from the conference dome, there's just a corner dome for getting your space cigarettes and your astro cans, and a dome for the rental or purchase of further domes. And there's a Pret. The accommodation within the conference dome is also dome-based, which I do not like because it means that everybody's bedtime rituals and sleeping habits are fully visible to the other guests in the other sub-domes in the accommodation sector. God forbid you sleep in the nude, as I do, and have to bend over to pick up your slippers in the morning. Then the whole dome gets a view of the true center of a black hole, if you know what I'm saying. So I opted to stay in the sleeping quarters of my vessel, the good ship Space Car, in the familiar grasp of my wall-mounted sleep restraint cocoon. That's cozy. My talk at the IXCUS was to be on the subject of the use of spirit levels in zero gravity, a scintillating topic on which I am widely regarded among GCC staff to be the foremost expert. I blush even now as I remember the moment I was asked to appear. "Tangent," said Departmental Undercheese Jellyman, radioing into my earpiece. "Space Elvis has dropped out of the convention and we need someone to take the spot or we'll lose our deposit. Do anything, I don't care." "Hot damn, count me in," I said, still straining to wrench my globular clusters from the jaws of a ravenous Beetlejuicean flytrap. Once the precious cargo was secured, I jumped back in Space Car, hit the big thrusters to maximum bigness, and within minutes I was picking up my guest lanyard at the conference dome's reception dome. I checked my lizard son Little Dribbles in at the desk, safely snuggled up in his travel cage, and ventured out onto the convention floor. Inside, I marveled at my name up there, hastily stenciled over the Space Elvis banner and only slightly misspelt as Lonk Tangbo. My vast, pulsating pride was punctured only by the appearance of a familiar yet unwelcome face. Rivalries are not customary in the GCC cartographic department. They rather go against the spirit of the endeavor. As long as them space fellers goes on the paper, who cares whose spurs gets the shine? As our founder, Big Toothless Willie, said. But if I were to have a rival, someone whose cartographic efforts were near the equal of mine, who is saddened by my successes and made horny by my defeats, it would be Trace Parallel, Space Cartographer. And it was with he that I now locked eyes with across a crowded dome with. Trace was instantly recognizable by his unusual silhouette for a human, incredibly long, thin legs leading up to a very small rump and a disproportionately large belly. At that moment, he looked like a pregnant stick insect that was chewing a wasp. And he smelled like one too. Although, to be fair, the gentleman's blubber is standard issue for us solo spacefarers, helping to stave off the infinite cold of space and provide extra ballast in the event of internal tardigrade infestation. Trace and I made polite small talk about the price of Dogarian beetle milk, as we usually did during such chance meetings, but I detected something else glinting in Trace's eyes, an intensity which I was gratified to realize was envy. Trace must have noticed me detecting this undercurrent as he suddenly dropped his guard and let it all spill out. His long, pointy finger appeared and started jabbing at me in the left man breast, jabbing and jabbing as his thin lips poured out accusations of bribery, both financial and sexual. After all, why else would they come to me instead of him to fill Space Elvis's shoes at the Intergalactic Convention of Space Cartographers and Stationary Salespersons? A bigger man might have waved this off graciously and attempted to be diplomatic in victory. But I am ultimately a frail and petty space cartographer, and I said that it must be because I was so great and he was such a smelly and bad poo-poo head. That tore it. Trace swore various types of revenge, both financial and sexual, and stormed off into the dome. This confrontation left me with a slight sense of unease, which was swiftly dispelled by the arrival of the catering staff, bearing trays covered in writhing, six-limbed, scaly creatures on skewers, which I was assured contained alcohol. 4 or 5 scaly guys later, I was on top of the world. Dome-goers of various species kept approaching me, saying things like, "Aren't you Lonk Tangbo? I'm hearing so much about this Lonk Tongbo," and the more slurred, "I'm just desperate to cop a feel of this Len Bisbo before the convention is over." One Insectian with huge mandibles also said, but they said it in a really flirty way. At every display booth, I got the pick of the handouts. A stress ball in the shape of the Galactic Central Command mothership from the recruitment booth, a commemorative keychain in the shape of the great star nipple of the third moon of Scacaplex Prime from the nipple worshippers, some of that new Soylent jerky, until, surrounded by admirers and firmly high on the smell of my own exhaust fumes, I was summoned to the stage to deliver my keynote address. I opened with the old limerick about the young lady from the outer maximal hermit crab galaxy who had a really big ass, which absolutely slayed, by the way, but moments after, before I could even begin my talk in earnest, the crowd's attention drifted away from me and my scintillating speech toward the enormous saucer hovering directly above the conference dome. Peering up through the glass ceiling, like so many female executives before me, I could just about make out the identity of the flying object. It was the reception dome. I hadn't realized it was one of the fancy new mobile models, with rocket engines for providing guest services on the go and front-mounted plasma cannons for handling customer complaints. Furthermore, behind the controls at the welcome desk, I could just make out the spindly, scowling shape of Trace Parallel. He had hijacked the reception and was now tilting its cannons down through the conference dome's roof, towards the podium at which I now stood. "Your run of good luck ends here, Golden Boy. Now prepare to suck plasma," is the sort of thing I imagine he was saying, but I couldn't hear him, obviously, because of the 2 thick domes of borosilicate glass between us. Still, that didn't stop him from flapping his stupid, greasy lips, and then looking even angrier and sweatier when he realized nobody could hear him. Down in the conference hall, the dome-goers looked silently up at him with an odd combination of abject terror and pity. They began to stir and murmur in fright, however, when Trace punched a button and the plasma cannons began to glow. Our eyes met across the vast distance, and I stood resolute and motionless at the prospect of my imminent death. I hope it came across as bravery, but the truth is it's just very difficult to run when you're actively soiling yourself. The soiling was short-lived, however, for suddenly the cannons cooled, and the reception dome began to list in the skies above us as some sort of small turquoise blur whirled around Trace's face. Was it? Could it be? Yes, it was Little Dribbles. Of course, I'd left him at reception when I checked in. Sensing the danger to his mama, me, Link Tangent, space cartographer, or perhaps just hungry, he was ruthlessly attacking Trace. Trace flailed to grab at the controls as the reception dome swerved violently back and forth, closer to the conference hall, then further away. The crowd screamed, then stopped, then screamed, then stopped, and so on, until, at last, Little Dribbles bit Trace's face off and he ran off screaming. The reception dome held still. The crowd cheered for 1/2 of 1 second before realizing that this meant that it was about to fall out of the sky and onto us. Then they all started screaming again and fled. The reception craft plummeted straight toward me, before glancing off the roof of the conference dome with a noise like this. Dunk! And then crashing to the dusty ground beside it. It really is true what the commercials say. Borosilicate glass. It would take a rampaging space rhinoceros with an armored hard-on the size of a battleship to penetrate it. So, in the end, everything turned out just fine, except for Trace Parallel having his face bitten off, which I guess must have been kind of a kick in the pants. And I do mean I guess, because once the Galactic Ops turned up and inspected the crashed reception dome, Trace was nowhere to be found. They thought they'd caught him at one point, until they realized that they were interviewing a basketball that his severed face had got stuck on, probably after the ball rolled over it or something. Little Dribbles, however, was found safe and sound, thank goodness, and is sitting in my lap at this very moment as I record this log. Though I do detect the slight glint in his eyes of a lizard with unfinished business. And no wonder, for even now, somewhere out there in the dark, the raw meat of Trace Parallel's bare face mush is scowling redly and probably plotting some sort of revenge. But no matter. Whenever he next shows his bit that used to be a face, with my superior cartographic abilities and my brave lizard son, I'll be ready for him. I might not be ready for looking at his raw face meat, though. I'm sort of dreading that part. Maybe he'll buy a mask or something. But you know, despite it all, the thing that really gets to me in all this is that still, now, none of those convention attendees know how to use a spirit level in zero gravity. Maybe some other time. But for now, this is Link Tangent, space cartographer and guest speaker, signing off. Well, little buddy, I can't get you what I suspect you really want for dinner, but how about some nice chicken faces instead? Mama! Yeah, that's my lizard boy. Who's a good lizard boy? Mama. Who is a good lizard boy? Is it you? Yes, it is. Little Dribbles is a good little lizard boy. The installments of Link Tangent's adventures you just heard were originally featured in Crowley Time episodes 1, 3, 5, 8, 14, 21, 25, and 33. The Quarantine segment included incidental music composed by Jeremy Fisher. The mysterious Whatever Happened to the European Union recording was written and performed by Felix Trench. The Conference Chamber segment guest-starred Lucy Farrett as Senior Cartographic Cheese Lindsay. Aside from that, everything you've just heard was made by me, Tom Crowley. I'll be back next week with the last in this latest series of Faces of Virtue, and after that, I'll see you at Crowley Time Live, Link's Gambit, at London Podcast Festival, 4:30 p.m. on Sunday the 7th of September 2025 at King's Place near King's Cross in London. Don't forget to book your tickets in advance at live.crowleytime.com. And always remember, as long as them space fellas goes on the paper, who cares whose Spurs gets the shine?